Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm bringing you all a review of the GBRS Hydra mount for the Aimpoint T2 and other micro series optics. And before I delve into the actual review portion of the video, I do want to preface it with the order that we'll be going in today. First, I'll tell you guys why I'm making this review in the first place. That'll bring us into particular use cases for this optic mount. And then we'll go into specs, and then we'll go into my actual review and experience with this optic mount. And then towards the end, I'll give you guys my final thoughts, opinions, that sort of stuff. So, first and foremost, why am I making this review? Well, since 2022, I believe is when this mount originally came out, the Hydra mount has been at the focal point of memes and that sort of stuff. It's been very easy to make fun of this mount. One thing that I wanted to see was an impartial review of the mount itself. I know it's very easy to make fun of certain things. You might see a solution to a problem that doesn't exist and you think, well, that's pretty hilarious. And sometimes it honestly is, but there is some validity in this mount, and today I'll be giving the devil his due. So, now the first use case we'll go over, you guys, is going to be your PDW style weapons. These weapons bring a issue, and that's a lack of real estate. As you know, when you start outfitting your 11.5 or your 14.5 even with night vision accessories, you run out of real estate very quickly. You have to be very discerning with where you're putting everything so you can actually use it effectively. But with certain rifles like a PDW setup, like a TP9 for example, you might not even have the option in the first place. So again, if you're trying to mount a laser and just outfit your PDW for night vision use, the Hydra and similar style diving board T2 red dot mounts do bring a legitimate solution to the table. Now with PDWs in mind, the next use case for the Hydra and other diving board style mounts is the dilemma of the MCX. For those of you guys that are unaware, the MCX has a very flexible handguard. There's a serious lack of rigidity in it. So much so that aftermarket accessories have been made to reduce this issue. However, whether you're buying a MCX Virtus like I have right here, or the Legacy, or even the new Spear LT, you have a very questionable zero if you mount an IR laser on the handguard. That's again because we have basically at this point just tension mounting the handguard to the upper receiver. If I take it off and show you guys, you'll see really it's a couple of rails, and if you're unaware, just a tab right there that's keeping the handguard in place. So not a whole lot by comparison to your traditional AR-15s and other rifles. So if you're going to mount an IR laser to an MCX, you might be better off just mounting it either further back on the receiver block or using a diving board style mount to mitigate the issue and avoid it altogether. Now the next use of the Hydra mount is going to obviously be night vision use. In conjunction with that, we're going to speak on CBRN use and CQB in general. But obviously with a centerline height of nearly 3 inches, this is very high into the realm of passive aiming mounts, right? So using a T2 Unity fast mount, I can say that when I'm using it to passively aim, which most of my experience is behind that, I still have to scrunch my neck down quite a bit because I'm not just trying to get my eye behind it, but I'm also trying to get the tube down behind it as well. The Hydra really does solve that because, well, if we look at it, it is so damn high that really you don't have any issue of trying to clear your night vision tubes. Not at least in my experience. And maybe this is because I've been using my ACOG quite a bit, which does have a P2 on top. And if I mount them side to side, back to back rather, they do line up very much so in terms of the red dot. They're both basically 2.91 inches and a centerline height. Now as for CBRN use, with a mount this high, if you're wearing a gas mask, that sort of a deal, it's very hard in general with the gas mask on to see through traditional height red dot mount, just because you have all this space being used. So having a taller mount does let you kind of get a better sight picture. And I'm not going to say that this is a necessity. Obviously, people have been training with gas masks and M16A2s for decades, that sort of deal. However, if a solution comes to market that does make your life a little bit easier, I do think it's worth considering. And as for CQB, this mount does make some sense. The complete absence of a cheek weld means that you're not likely to use it in a prone position. So if you're breaching or if that's your profession, anything along those lines, a tall mount like the Hydra does make some sense, and I would probably look into that if that was something that I had to do. Now another use case of the Hydra is going to be for folks with injuries. Having several friends that have neck and spinal injuries who all prefer taller mounts, again, they all lack the mobility from the injuries to really get down into a absolute or lower third position. So for them, being a little more naturally head upright in their posture is much more comfortable. So if that's something that you're dealing with, maybe look into a taller mount or look into the Hydra. It could be a solution for you depending on the severity of the issue. With all that out of the way, let's talk about specs. The mount comes in with a 2.91 centerline height. It is 5.7 ounces, nothing crazy light, nothing extremely heavy. It is machined out of 6061 T6 aluminum, which is fine, but for the MSRP of around $500, I would prefer that they use 7075. Companies like Unity, Scaleworks have been using it for quite some time. As for finish, they went with a Cerakote finish that comes in tan, comes in black. Cerakote is fine for certain things, but I would prefer it again that they use hard coat anodizing instead, because companies, again, Unity, Scaleworks, and many others have been using anodizing for a long time. And for the price point, again, I just feel like that would have been a little bit more getting what you pay for. Now, when it comes to night vision style mounts, the Hydra is at the top of the pack in terms of height. Again, 2.91 inches. The second closest as of right now would be like the Knight's Armament Skyscraper and the Overbore Systems night vision mount, both of which are at 2.33 inches. Still very tall, but not quite this tall. Following those would be the Unity T2 Fast and the Unity, Picatinny mount, both of which will bring your optics up to a 2.26. Following that is going to be the Jagerwerks A1 mount. That is at a 2.25, and from there on you're just going to find 193s, lower thirds, and we're just going to the very bottom now. So with all these mounts in mind, such as the A1, the Fast, Skyscraper, so on, what does a Hydra do differently or better? Well, again, it's at the very top of the height range, but it's also a single piece diving board setup. Now, the CAG Skyscraper can be flipped around using its magnifier mount as like a diving board, but I've only seen a few people do it with success. As of the HRF SKIFF from HRF Concepts, that does pair with a Unity T2 Fast mount to make a pseudo Hydra, just albeit a little bit shorter. However, that is a two-piece system. And the Jagerwerks mount, again, is another diving board style setup that you can put together. It's also going to be a two-piece system. So the Hydra comes to the table at both the tallest height and also being a single piece of aluminum. And while I haven't heard anybody complain about shift and zero with their HRF SKIFF and a Unity mount or the A1 from Jagerwerks, it is still worth considering that it is a single piece, so the failure point is just non-existent basically. Now with that centerline height of nearly 3 inches, you might be wondering how does that affect your point of aim and point of impact. So let's take a look at that in this video. So from 5 yards, we're going to compare the point of impact versus point of aim and see how bad that offset is. All right, let's walk it down. So I don't have a ruler on me, but that's, I'd say, about 5 or so inches. This is basically as I expected. Again, if you're gonna use a mount like this, you need to train the offsets because they're significant, really. There's a video out there from, I think, 2022 of a Tacoma, Washington police officer neutralizing an active shooter. This distance was not easy. I mean, it's 183 yards he took the shot from, but he only took one shot from a rifle with the Hydra mount, of all mounts, to neutralize the active shooter. And again, 183 yards, I'm not sure what he was zeroed at, but I don't really attribute his shot and, well, the placement of it to luck. I think that really does reflect his training and his skill and dedication he put into learning his rifle, and also his limitations. Honestly, the video is just a phenomenal example of a level of proficiency that we should all be striving to reach with all of our rifles, whether they're 11.5, 16-20, whatever it is. So if you guys are going to use a tall mount like this, please train diligently, make that offset, learn that shift, make it second nature for yourselves. That way there's no issue of thinking how far I got to hold at whatever distance. So all that stuff out of the way, such as specs, use cases, that sort of deal. What has my actual experience been with the Hydra mount? It's been honestly very underwhelming. It's been nothing dramatic. It's been everything that it should be, right? I have an experience of the shift in the T2 Zero. I have never experienced a shift in the IR Laser Zero, whether it's with my Raid or a pack. I've used it on both my 11.5 Knights upper receiver. I've used it on the MCX takeoffs from earlier. And again, no shift in zero. It's been about 1,500, maybe 2,000 rounds between the two rifles. Fair amount of night vision use, but mostly daylight use. But again, if there was going to be a shift in zero, I think I would have experienced it. Now, for personal opinions, let's talk about first, what do you get when you pay $5,000 for a red dot mount? Well, aside from the Hydra, you get an installation tool, which you absolutely need, because installing a T2 upside down with these limited corners you have here is really, really annoying. The tool is included. It's high quality. I do appreciate that. But you also get some extras. You have a challenge coin included if that's your thing. You also get a sticker, because everybody loves stickers. Personally, again, I would have rather have seen GBRS forego all the extras and just lower the MSRP. I think that would have made it more palatable to the general consumer, but it is what it is. One point that I do want to mention is that the effect on recoil control with the Hydra is far more noticeable than it is with other heads-up style mounts, be it a 226 or 193. And this is backed purely by my experience with the Hydra and, more importantly, my skill as a shooter. I think I'm a pretty decent shooter. I'm not amazing, I'm not terrible. However, my recoil control is significantly more difficult to manage with the Hydra than other, like I said, heads-up style mounts. And funny enough, despite my P2 on the ACOG TA110 being at a near identical centerline height, the Hydra is just that much harder to keep steady, to keep center in your point of aim. It might just be due to the Hydra mount being this tall and narrow piece of aluminum compared to a bulky ACOG keeping me more centered. I don't really know how to describe it. However, it is worth noting, especially under stress. If you're trying to do a timed cadence of fire, or like in these clips I'm doing a T-Rex Arms 50 round carbine cadence of fire, it is significantly more difficult to maintain that recoil control, especially as you move out to distance. This is purely my opinion. I apologize that I can't articulate this any better than I can. However, I think there might be a little bit of a threshold with every shooter where the height of an optic just gets to the point where it's a little too high. I mean, it's a little too unreasonable for you to use. And for me, I think the Hydra just barely crosses over that threshold. For you, it might not, but I think this is absolutely worth including because I want you to be as informed as you can as it pertains to this product and other products out there. That aside, do I recommend it? If you guys have a use case for this, any of the ones that I mentioned or a combination of them, I do recommend it. I really do, because again, it is the only single piece red dot diving board mount out there. It is the only one that comes up to almost 3 inches, so it's very tall. If you can get one for a discounted price, whether you're able to buy it new discounted, I haven't seen that, but maybe. If you're able to do that, that's great. If you're able to buy it secondhand like I did, that's even better, just because you're not paying $half a grand. But I recommend it in that regard. I also recommend the other mounts out there, like the HRF Concepts SKIFF paired with the Unity FAST. The Jagerwerks, I haven't used their A1 mount, but Jagerwerks does really great stuff for slide milling, so hopefully they can do good stuff with an optic mount. If you have a question on the Hydra mount, anything that I missed in the video review, you're welcome to leave it down below in the comments or message me on Instagram, and I'm happy to get back to you and do my best to answer that question. But as it pertains to videos, you guys, please let me know down below in the comments if there's anything that you want to see. I do have several videos planned up, but what I know isn't necessarily what you know. So if there's anything you want to see as pertains to rifle setups or handgun, night vision, other equipment, so on, let me know, and I'm more than happy to try and make that happen. As for the channel, you guys, the channel is receiving a lot of support that I didn't anticipate, like I said in the last video, and I really, really do appreciate it. It's been fun making these videos, and I intend to keep them coming. And if you guys have not already done so, please subscribe to the channel and like, comment, all these things do a ton of good in the channel's growth and its reach to new viewers. So if you've been enjoying the video so far, subscribing does bring it to you, as does hitting the notification bell. I feel bad having to say all this stuff, but it is the reality we live in with YouTube and the sacrifices that must be paid to the algorithm god. Well, they do not go unnoticed by me. I appreciate it very much, you guys. So take care out there, and I'll see you in the next one.